Welcome to the Jill on Money Show. It's Wednesday, July 17th, and we are here trying to help you make better financial decisions and maybe parse through some of the headlines that you see all the time. Part of our job, as Mark and I see it, is just to try to make a lot of this financial information more accessible to you. And part of the story that we've been talking about that's been a biggie for the last few years is the story of inflation. I know we all feel the weight of this, and we just got a report late last week that showed some improvement on inflation. And, I know it's been sort of fits and starts, right? So you have a huge, terrible peak in inflation 2 years ago. Then there's great progress from basically like June of 2022 to June of 23. Then it sort of feels like things are stalling out a little bit. Well, as of June of this year, 2 years after our peak, again, we are seeing some good news. The government reported that inflation was up by 3% from a year ago, and inflation as measured by the Consumer Price Index. And there were some pretty interesting pieces of this. The overall rate actually went down month over month. The core rate was up 3.3%. That from a year ago, that's the smallest increase since April of 2021. Gas prices down. Even the shelter component, which was remained really high, showed some improvement. Yes, shelter up 5.2% from a year ago, but it was the slowest year over year growth since 2022. So overall, pretty good news. Now, I know that there's a lot of confusion on inflation, which is why I would like to air the segment that we did last week on CBS Mornings. And I think this is important because I really thought that this was a great explainer about the difference between the inflation rate and prices overall. So here I am sitting down with Nate Burleson on CBS Mornings last week, and then we're going to come back on the other side of this, and I want to talk a little bit more about what you can do to combat inflation.
Let's just start off with the relationship between the inflation rate and the prices. How are they related?
What we have to remember is that inflation measures the rate of prices going up.
Right.
Okay? So it's the rate of increase. Normal economies, the inflation rate goes up by, say, 2% a year. And if you look at, the last 10 years before COVID, 2% a year. Then you get to COVID, it spikes. It was crazy. 2 years ago, 9.1%. Now we're in the 3% range. But the thing is, that inflation rate coming down doesn't mean prices are coming down.
There you go.
And I know it's confusing. If you look at the last 5 years, prices are up by about 23%. In a normal inflationary environment, it would have been 11%. So you still would have had higher prices, not this high.
I'm glad you made that distinction. Prices on consumer goods are still pretty high. So what tips do you have?
Well, look, I think that because prices remain high, you really have to focus on your big ticket items. You know what they are. That's housing, it's transportation, and it's food. And it means you really got to start tracking your money. There are so many great apps out there, and we're going to put a few of these up, but it doesn't matter how you track them because it could be a spreadsheet, it could be hand, it could be through your bank. But unless you actually look at how you're spending your money, especially in those big categories, it's hard to make a dent.
You got to be disciplined. Interest rates have remained at these levels for a year now. When can consumers expect, some relief?
Well, the Fed chair testified before Congress this week, and he's saying, look, things are improving. We're not there yet. They have a meeting at the end of this month. However, we don't think they're going to do anything this month. I think they start to cut. Maybe they think about it. Not guaranteeing this. September. That's our next meeting.
Okay, so is there a risk for waiting too long?
Well, the risk is when you wait too long, you slow down the economy, right? And where do you see that? You would see that in the labor market. That would be terrible because we don't want to see job losses. We don't want to see wages stagnate. So we hope that the Fed can kind of navigate this little middle ground where we can get the economy slow, not too slow, bring the inflation rate down before it impacts the labor market.
Some of the ideas around how to deal with higher prices do include tracking your expenses and not sweating the small stuff as much as the big stuff. But there's another part of this that's so important, and that is being a stock investor. Because one of the greatest hedges against inflation over the long term is to be an investor. because the whole point of you trying to get your money to work hard is not just to get a pile of money. It's to outpace the inflation rate. And if you are smart and start early, then it's not as hard. But when you wait really late in your life, it's a lot harder to keep up with rising prices. So obviously, we always say this, the stock market is not the economy. It is a measure of all these companies' ability to make money. But one of the things that we've seen is that companies can produce earnings over time faster than the inflation rate. And that's kind of the key to being a really good investor. So if you're worried about how do I hedge inflation, should I buy gold, should I buy Bitcoin? No, you should be a diversified investor looking at a portfolio of index funds that's going to help you get where you need to go. That's it. That's really it. So I encourage you to continue to send us your questions about anything investment related or economic data that you don't quite get, anything like that. We'd love to hear from you. Just go to our website, jillonmoney.com, click the Contact Us button, and of course, check the box if you would like to join us on the air live. Mark will do everything for you. While you're on the website, sign up for the free weekly newsletter. Check out our subscription service, $35 for Jill on Money Live. And always check out our YouTube show called Jill on Money, powered by The Compound. You can subscribe to this show on the Odyssey app or wherever you find your favorite podcast. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen. And we like to ask you to please try to do something nice for someone else today. Change your work, change your wealth, change your life. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow.